Okay, it's true what they say, third time is a charm. So here we are. We're going to talk about HTML and the kind of the overview of how it works. You're going to get a better view of looking at w3schools.com for a resource for how the tags work. You're going to get a really good tutorial or some good lessons in Code Academy about producing HTML, understanding how it all works in that. I want to talk bigger picture and just kind of the page structure and just get you on your way. So this will be kind of that first starting point. I want to talk a little bit about how the whole process works in general. Kind of at the top of the chain here is the server, and the server is really just a computer. You hear server all the time, and server is just a computer that has specialized software running on it. I can run it on something as small as my watch or even smaller devices. But if you're going to do this in a commercial way, you need a very robust, powerful computer with a lot of throughput for network, many connections at the same time. And then again, you're going to run this software called Apache, which is generally what happens in the cloud. Of course, for this class, you're not going to worry about that. Someone else is handling all of the server requirements for us. But you need to understand that really there's nothing special about a server. It's just a fast computer living somewhere with a dedicated connection to the internet. And it has, instead of it has an IP address, it will have an IP address, it also has a domain name. So in our case, it's ITCD land is the server we're using. In other cases, it'll be something else. Okay, so you're down here sitting at your desktop, and you are a web publisher, so you're the P. And you're going to create these HTML documents, and then you're going to upload them to the server. And then it's going to live in a folder, and say you create a file called test.html. The client is just going to ask for that page. They're going to type in the name of the server, something like itcdland.csumb.edu/test.html. Sorry. There we go. So they type in that address. The server, the software on the server says, "Oh, you want this test.html document? I'm going to serve that to you." So you've already uploaded that file to a folder on this server, and the client then requests that page and gets delivered to them. Now, as far as the nuts and bolts of the HTML document, this is a great place to start for programming because one, there are billions of examples on the web. HTML is a language that doesn't require compiling, which means that it's something that you can just click on a web page, say view source, and you can view the source and look at how the page was written. So if you're ever looking at something and you say, how do they do that? Usually you can figure it out by just viewing the source of the web page. So the HTML part of it, hypertext markup language, the ML, just means that you're describing stuff. So markup language means that you're describing the content of the document. You'll identify something and say, this is a heading, this is a paragraph, this is an article, this is an aside, this is a footer. So you're going to describe what it is. You're not going to define in the HTML how it looks, but you're going to define what it does, what the purpose of that chunk of text is. So this is a very structural, defining what is going on in the document. Later on, we'll define how that looks using CSS. You always want to keep your style sheets separate and your style definitions separate from your markup definitions, because you might want to be able to view this a bunch of different ways. View it with Siri, view it with Alexa, view it with a phone, view it with a watch, view it in an app. I was getting into Dr. Seuss there. So you can view this multiple different ways by just changing the CSS and not changing the HTML. So that's our goal, is to be able to create good HTML that's just a descriptive kind of information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hop over to the computer. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll show you kind of the nuts and bolts of an HTML document. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen, and what I've got here is this test.html document that I've created. And let me walk through this. So when you get to the document, again, the software on the server, Apache, is going to deliver this document, right? So it's going to see the .html, and it's going to go, okay, I understand what HTML documents are. I'm going to serve it in that way. But when you get into the body of the content, this doc type, the doc type also declares that. It says, hey, I'm an HTML document. So that's really what this first line does. It just is a declaration of what's going to go on in that page. The next thing it does is it says, here's the HTML. So it is actually telling Apache, or telling the browser now, in this case, that on the client side, that this is HTML information. So everything contained between these two tags is HTML. So the next thing here is you'll see some head information. Head is information that describes the document. So things like the title of the document, what language or what character set it is. So sometimes it'll say this is an English language document. You might have links to style sheets here. So there's a lot of information that goes on, but none of this will display in the browser. This, with the exception of the title, will display in the top of the browser, the title of the document. But if you want something to appear, actually be defined and show up, it's got to live between the body tags. So the body just defines just that. It says, here's what the browser is going to display. And I've added a heading tag here, which is heading 1, which is the highest headings. If you think about this in outline view, where you say, okay, we've got the most important thing is a heading, the second most important thing is heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, so on. So you can lay this stuff out and organize your document in that. I'll talk more about that in another video, but that's just what this tag does here. And then I don't have any tag around this content of the document, so it's just straight text. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to hop over to my browser. I'm going to refresh the page here. And I've got my content. So I've got hello world, and then I've got content of the document. You notice I don't see any of that markup stuff. The browser is kind of interpreting that and displaying it. You'll also notice here that it says file : //. That means that I'm looking at a file on my computer. I haven't put it on the server yet. This is important. You don't want to get into this trap of saying, well, I'm all done. I finished the document. No, you've got to do that final mile of pushing it up to the server and putting it in the right place so that this URL right here is a valid URL. So let's see, what else do we want to talk about? The method of transfer is, again, we'll talk about that in another video, and I have videos on how to do it. But the technology we use is Secure File Transfer Protocol, SFTP. It just means that it's a way, again, another tool that lets us log into the server, see the folders on the server, see the folders on a local hard drive, be able to click on a file and say, put this in that folder on the server. I can't stress this enough to keep your folders organized. We'll talk about this later, but I always have to hound on this. You want the same file structure on your local computer as you do on the server, and they'll mirror each other because you're going to be linking documents to each other. If you link to an image on in another folder on your local computer, that file structure is not the same on the server, your host. It won't work. You'll have a dead image, or you'll have a dead link. So you've always got to keep the same file structure on your local machine. View it, navigate it, look around. Everything should work. Take the whole thing, push it to the server, and it will work there as well. Okay, I'm going to say that is it, and I hope this gets you on your way. Go ahead and do the Code Academy assignment, and I'm hoping that you'll have a really good understanding of HTML when we're done.